The first light touches the Sahel. It moves across cracked earth and fields where planting should have already begun, fields once fed by chemical fertilizers that promised abundance but slowly drained the land of life. One quiet announcement has traveled farther than the morning wind. The nation has decided to step away from the Western fertilizer system that shaped its soil for decades. For years, chemical inputs boosted yields but weakened the land. Farmers produced more grain but lost resilience. Older farmers still remember the darker, richer soil of their youth, earth that grew food from balance, not dependency. So when the government spoke, it wasn't just a policy change. It felt like a return. A question began to echo from radios, courtyards, and markets. What happens when a nation chooses to heal its soil instead of feeding its fear? The announcement didn't arrive with drums or celebration. It happened quietly in a room where ministers held two handfuls of soil, one pale and lifeless, the other darker and breathing with hidden life. 2 decades of agricultural history sat side by side. Chemical fertilizers had become a lifeline, shipped from distant factories, stamped with foreign logos, raising yields while slowly emptying the soil of its own strength. Fields that once held moisture now cracked under the sun. Millet that once grew naturally now depended on chemicals to survive. Farmers calculated debts instead of seasons. Older generations remembered the shift painfully well, a time when fields rested, compost returned nutrients to the earth, and farming followed rhythms instead of formulas. But dependency grows quietly. What began as one new product became a cycle of needing more fertilizer each year just to keep the soil alive. Costs climbed. Harvests did not. And by the time the nation recognized the trap, the dependency had already tightened. Then came a discovery, not from speeches, but from science. Local agronomists began testing untouched soils, compost plots, and traditional Sahel techniques. What they found challenged an entire global industry. The darker, organic soil held more water, resisted heat, and supported microbial life that had simply been starved. With organic inputs, it recovered faster than expected. 2 seasons of biofertilizer trials matched, and sometimes beat, chemical yields. Sorghum regained color, roots grew deeper, and essential insects returned. This wasn't nostalgia. It was science, and the logic was simple. Chemical fertilizer feeds the plant, biofertilizer feeds the soil. And only soil can feed a nation. The decision to ban Western fertilizers, a $2.7 billion industry, was bold and risky. It shook markets far beyond the Sahel. Foreign capitals issued warnings. Companies predicted shortages. But inside the country, farmers felt something different. Relief, recognition, a return to what they once knew. Some were afraid, others hopeful. But all agreed on one thing: the old path led them to exhaustion. The new path, though uncertain, offered healing. Across villages, elders shared old methods: compost pits, manure mixed with ash, resting fields, natural cycles of renewal. Young people listened with curiosity. They had never known farming without chemicals. Biofertilizer factories in towns like Bobo, Kaya, Kudugu, and Gour rushed to expand. Trucks that once delivered imported chemicals now carried compost. Women's cooperatives became essential, managing compost hubs and reviving fertilizer trees that restore soil naturally. Scientists explained the deeper truth. Much of the nation's soil now contained less than 1% organic matter, below the level where land functions as a living system. Chemical fertilizers fed crops quickly but did not rebuild soil or protect it from heat and drought. Resistance grew from those who benefited from the old system. Importers warned of disaster. European suppliers circulated memos saying West Africa couldn't survive without their products. Brussels even proposed tariffs within 48 hours, but the country stood firm. Meanwhile, young volunteers built biochar furnaces from scrap metal and clay. Teenagers produced soil amendments strong enough to support dozens of farms. They weren't engineers, they were simply determined not to inherit a failing system. Still, challenges emerged: delays in distribution, shortages in some regions, rising urban food prices, and geopolitical pressure. Yet the emotional heart of the story stayed in the fields. Older women walked across newly treated soil, letting it slip through their fingers. "It feels alive again," one whispered, but as hope grew, hard questions followed. If the world fears this change, how far will it go to stop it? Across Africa, governments, researchers, and regional blocs watched closely. Some saw a model worth studying. Others feared economic disruption. And global powers, Europe, America, China, Russia, interpreted the shift through economic and geopolitical lenses. Because if one landlocked nation could break a 40-year dependency, others might follow. Now 3 paths lie ahead. 1. Rebuilding from within. Restoring soil, scaling compost production, training agronomists, and building infrastructure that supports long-term fertility. 2. Renegotiating externally. Rewriting contracts, recalibrating trade agreements, and proving that sovereignty can be sustainable. 3. Forming regional alliances. Sharing research, coordinating production, and building a West African agricultural system that no longer depends on foreign chemicals. But even with these possibilities, challenges remain: climate change, security risks, possible foreign pressure, and the uncertainty of upcoming harvests. Yet one force rises above all: the next generation. Young people now see farming not as survival, but as purpose. They are turning abandoned lots into compost yards, scrap metal into furnaces, and kitchen waste into microbial cultures. Innovation is wearing the face of memory, because a nation that heals its soil heals its future. The story does not end with a fertilizer ban. It begins with a question, an ancient question: what do we owe the land that has carried us through hunger, drought, and forgotten seasons? For decades, the answer was borrowed, priced in foreign currencies, shipped from distant factories. Today, the nation is writing its own answer, and the world is watching.